for your leadership and for your endorsement, Senator Stern. Really thank you, Ira, for your support. Proud to catch you on our team. And how about my husband? Huh? He's pretty special. And I've really enjoyed seeing America come to fall in love with him the way I have. And I'm so thankful for all of you. Thanks to the Abbey for hosting us. What a great time. And a number of elected officials here, including Mayor Pro Tem Lindsay Horvath, who's got some South End connections. I'm so thrilled to spend a little bit of time with you. And I want to thank you for being an example of what 21st century grassroots presidential campaign support looks like. I'll be honest, when we were making our plans for the spring and figuring out what May was going to look like, we thought that we would be spending our time explaining how to say my name and convincing people that I ought to be somewhere in this process so that we could fight our way onto the debate stage and have a breakout moment maybe in June. Instead, we qualified for the debates a long time ago. People are still trying to figure out how to say my name. But instead of trying to claw our way into the top 10, we are consolidating our position as one of the top candidates in the presidential election. That is evidence of the fact that all of the things that made this campaign unlikely, all of the things that made this campaign unusual, all of the things that made this campaign raise a few eyebrows when we said we were going to get going, are the things that are propelling us into the top of the conversation. The idea of a mayor, not a moment too soon, I think. At a time when we have got to figure out a way to make Washington look more like our best-run cities and towns before it starts to go the other way around. The idea of a voice from a different kind of community, the industrial Midwest, where this president targeted the vulnerabilities of our community, not just with the racism and the xenophobia, but with a message saying that in the face of all these changes that were confusing and disrupting our communities, that we just stop. We just go back. That greatness could be found pickled from the past and opened back up and served today in order to make America great again. And the thing is, that's not how American greatness works. It's certainly true that we can make contact with a great tradition, but if we look into our past, if we seek the very greatest thing in our past, the kinds of people we really want to emulate, the most important thing we will find about the best people in our past is that they always kept their eyes on the future. The story of my hometown, the city of South Bend, and that's why it's time for a new generation of leadership in America. Here at the Abbey and everywhere we go from coast to coast, we see the stirrings of a generational alliance. This is not 1968, when one generation rose up against their parents. This is a moment when you see young people, younger than I am, leading. Whether it was the airport protests against the travel ban, or even in South Bend, an amazing women's march, the day of the inauguration, or the March for Our Lives that had young people saying, "You're not doing enough to keep us safe." We saw young people in the lead, but we also saw their parents and their grandparents at their side cheering them on. That's what change can look like in our lives. That alliance is forming around the values of freedom, security, and democracy. Don't let anybody tell you the Democrats don't know how to put what we believe in onto a bumper sticker. It fits. Freedom, security, and democracy. We got got to make sure Americans understand that there's more to freedom than cutting somebody's taxes or taking apart a regulation on a bank. That freedom is something we have to build up. We have to lift each other up. We know that because freedom entails being able to live a life of your choosing. And good policy, good government, not big or small, but good government, is government that tears down the barriers to that life. That's why we have an obligation to defend freedom by ensuring everybody has health care so that you can start that small business even if you stay in your own house. That's why I don't have to be a woman to know that we're not going to be a free country so long as there are attacks on a woman's right to make reproductive health. I know that I've got to stand up for people of color who in housing, education, and so many other areas have been left behind as a consequence of racist policies that cannot be overcome simply by replacing racist policies with non-racist policies, but will require us to establish anti-racist policies to become more justice. And yes, West Hollywood, we know that you're not free if a county clerk gets to tell you who you ought to marry, because we know that love is love and freedom is on the line in our building. That struggle for freedom is the defining energy in the American story. And we shouldn't let anybody tell us that freedom belongs to a political party, and if it did, it wouldn't be the one that's putting up somebody with authoritarian tendencies to run the United States. It's the same with security. We are done with the idea that patriotism and security belong to the American political right wing. Not when the defining security of our time, climate security, is something that the folks in charge won't even talk about, but we are prepared to lead on here at home and around the world. 21st century security is a lot more than something you deal with just by putting up a wall from sea to shining sea. It means election security. It means cyber security. And yes, it means securing this nation's communities in the face of a rising tide of violent white nationalism. And if we want freedom, if we want security, then we had better tend to our democracy. We call ourselves Democrats for a reason. We are committed to democratic values, that our democratic republic, that our democratic capitalism get more democratic and not less as we go. This is imperative. And we can't call ourselves a democracy as long as districts are drawn to where politicians get to pick out their voters instead of the other way around. We can't call ourselves a democracy so long as one side has made it a political strategy to make sure that some voters, usually voters of color, are unable to exercise their right to vote. And I would argue we'd be a much more democratic democracy if we took the rather simplistic step of setting up our presidential elections so that we just give it to the woman or man who got the most votes. Can't be done, some say. The Constitution can't do it. Are you aware that, as we look at the magnificent bar back there, are you aware that we live in a country that changed its Constitution so you couldn't drink? And then thought, that's not such a great idea, we should change it back. Don't tell me we can't change our Constitution in order to make this democracy more secure. The amendment process to begin with. So let's not be afraid to talk about structure. Economic structure, democratic structure, because it's gotten twisted, it's gotten warped. Presidencies like the one we're living in don't just happen. People like the person in the White House don't come within cheating distance of the Oval Office under ordinary circumstances. And that's why we've got to recognize the seriousness of this moment. That what's happening right now is a symptom, not a cause. It is a symptom of a deep disorientation in our economy and our democracy. But we also have the great benefit of living at one of those rare moments in American history when the decisions we make will ripple out throughout time. That I'm convinced that the things we do in the next months and the next years will decide the next half century of American political, social, and economic life.